are required since they're obviously helper applications in that sense. So we'll think of it chronologically. The first thing we do, the journey of our employee starts when we attempt to recruit. So you've got the recruitment application. This is your ATS, your application tracking system. You basically have all your job positions listed over there. Each one has its own pipeline with stages that are customizable to it. You can then move the applicants across different stages, communicate with them, book meetings, take notes, etc. within that record. Once the employee reaches the stage where the interview process or the recruitment process is completed, you're now able to go ahead and create an employee profile from there directly. Right. Conveniently, once you create an employee profile, you have an app, a standalone application for you to manage the employee data. This is the employee's application, of course. This is where you manage the employees, their dependents, potentially their insurance details, if that's something you'd like to track within the scope of HR, so their medical insurance details. You're then able to obviously, this is where a lot of your master data will live as well. So the breakdown of my departments, on the employee profile, I get to define who their manager is, who approves their time off, who approves their expenses, etc. Now, since we've mentioned it, expenses is where employees can record any expenses that they've paid either using company payment methods, so if a company card is issued, or any expenses that they've paid for out of their own pockets that need to potentially be reimbursed or paid back to them, whether within the payroll cycle or off cycle. Um, from there, we move on to the transactional, the day to day, right? So for me, those are time off and attendances. You'll see time off over here and attendances. I think the name gives it away with time off. This is where you manage the leave balances. Their leave applications happen over there. That's where they see their dashboard of how many days they've got remaining, etc. Again, we can, dive deeper into anything that you'd like to see in more detail. So you can take note of that now towards the end of the session, just so we can keep our focus on payroll, right? With attendances, it's the same thing. This is where we manage the attendance of employees, if they've worked any overtime or if they have any undertime, potentially their absences as well. This is where all that information is going to live. Um, and I think for me, this is pretty much it, right? Then obviously you have approvals, right? Where you've got, this is a more general application that works for multiple departments, not necessarily within the scope of HR alone. So this is something we can use in a procurement workflow. This is something we can, obviously utilize and leverage since it's a whole approval engine to, for instance, drive the issuance of things like your salary certificates and any other documents that you might request from the company. Then, obviously, finally, all this, like I said, pours into payroll. Why do I say pours into payroll? Some things we will only pay out if the employee has dependents. Some things we will only pay out, if the employee has any undertime for the month, overtime, which the payroll application will query the attendance application to get this information. Let's say for unpaid leaves or for sick leaves past 15 days, we're going to need to do some calculation over there as well to help us kind of build the right payslip for that employee. Is this brief kind of clear to everyone? I think, can we move into payroll now? Is there any questions, anything you'd like to ask before we go ahead?
Just proceed.
Sorry?
Just proceed.
All right, perfect. So when it comes, Mhm. Yeah, yes, please. Mhm. Yes, and thank you for that question. So the idea for me is I need the information that matters, right? So if we were to integrate, we also try to be very efficient with that. Your answer briefly is yes, we are capable of integrating, of course, provided that there's APIs available from your Oracle instance that will allow to push this information into Odoo. Um, so Odoo obviously provides endpoints and allows you to create endpoints as you like for us to be able to receive that information. And I think once we get into the discussion of payroll, I can show you, or it'll help me explain to you kind of how payroll can query anything that is on the database. So if we receive that information, from Oracle. We store it somewhere. We give it a model for it to land, and it's just stored in its own table. And then from there, we're able to go ahead and query to get the right calculation per employee for that period. Yeah, perfect. All right. So when it comes to payroll, there's a few things you need to set up, obviously, that are musts on the system. So obviously, this is your dashboard. This is where you would see if you had any warnings. So this was filled with warnings yesterday as I was setting up the database, letting me know that I have some employees with no ID numbers set, and this is important because once the pay run is completed, I might want to generate a CIF file so that I can send that to my bank. Um, to issue the payments, obviously. So it was warning me about the different aspects, the different things that are missing that I need to carry out for me to be able to have a full pay run from the system. Next off, you've got your employee profiles, and I'll just show you a very brief example here. So I've got Ahmed here. You've put in all their information. The important information that I care about is this section over here with payroll. I need to tell the system their contract date. I need to tell the system what their basic salary is. It's labeled under wage here. I need to tell the system what their allowances are, housing, transportation, and other. I am capable of adding more allowances if that happens. But as part of our localization, as per the labor law, the employee is entitled to a basic salary along with these three components here, making up their total salary. All right. And very briefly, this would be the bare minimum level of information that I would need to store so that I can issue a payslip. Right. Um, the way pay runs work is they'll check employees who are under contract for that period, even if they overlap, if it's not for the full period. So if I'm creating a payslip for or a pay run for the period of March 1st to 31st, then it checks everyone who has overlapping contracts with that. That's why it's important for us to have this detail. Now, obviously, you have the ability to set end dates to this contract and manage the contract lifecycle, create new ones. Within the same contract, you're also able to add what we call versions, right? You'll see this plus button over here. This will basically ask you what date is this effective as of, and then from there you're going to go ahead and if we just create one from today onwards, this is going to be a new version where, for example, this employee's salary has been adjusted so that their basic salary is now 50,000 dirhams. And then if I move back to the old version, you'll see it reverts back to the older one. However, for all future pay runs, including the one for March, this is the latest, and that's why it'll be utilizing this version over here. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions? Anything? Oh, all right, perfect. So from there, obviously, you've got a couple sections here. This is a time off section that's been added recently in a recent update. This is just to help the payroll team to also, when they're doing their audits, kind of check the time off records as well here. Obviously, I don't have much on the system here in terms of time off. Um, This will basically help the payroll team with their audits when they're auditing things like the sick leaves, things like the unpaid leaves, etc., just to make sure things work as expected. All right. Then from here, you've got this section, which we will jump to at the very end. You've got your configuration, and this is a little bit interesting because this is the core, this is the skeleton, let's say, of the payroll module. This is where you set everything up, right? So the way the system works is it creates something called work entries. Now, what are work entries? Work entries is just the breakdown of each day for an employee. So the combination of, hey, for example, Musab on Wednesday, the 25th of March, 2026, has a work entry for attendance, right? If Musab's off tomorrow, then for Thursday, the 26th, he's going to have a work entry for a specific time off type, for a specific leave type, whether that's going to be an unpaid leave, a paid leave, sick leave, whatever that may be. This is our mechanism of breaking down each day into its own record so that we are able to sort of, calculate every day on its own, right? I hope that makes sense. This is in terms of when we're talking, let's say, deductions on certain things. It allows us to easily, or in an easier manner, so to speak, um, calculate the pro rata, let's say, for instance, etc. Right? So the idea of why we do this as well is there are instances where I will pay the payroll for the entire period of March, for instance, on the 27th or the 28th of March. The payments are already out, the pay slips are done, right? Somebody may take a leave on the 29th, 30th, or the 31st, changing what I paid out, right? Technically speaking. So in instances like this, because we've broken down each record into its own day, the period that we've paid out, the system freezes. It doesn't allow for any changes. It then propagates this into a future period, into the next available slot. That would be April 1st, because I haven't yet paid for April, right? And it'll take April 1st and turn that into an unpaid leave. And it'll obviously give you an indication that, hey, this day is only recorded like this because the previous period was already locked, right? This is very briefly what work entries are. Obviously, there's a lot more detail that goes into this, which we can dive into, down the line. We explain this a lot further in training sessions, etc. Then you've got your working schedules. Now, this is beneficial if you're going to have the core attendance logic. And I think, Musab, this is relevant to something you brought up as well. If you're going to have the core attendance logic in terms of, hey, I'm looking at the employees' check-ins, their check-outs, and calculating the overtime and undertime on the system, then it's obviously important for me to set the boundaries of when they are working. We can very briefly look into this, the way this is set up. Now, this obviously will just tell you the number of hours that employees expected to work. All right. On different days. You can also specify work from and work 2 hours here as well. So if you'd like them to start working at a specific time, ending at a specific time, it's not completely flexible like this, then obviously you can go ahead and set this in these fields over here, as you can see. All right. Then we get to structure types, structures, and rules. Now, all these come hand in hand, really. So as part of our localization, we've got a UAE employee structure, right? This is, sorry, the structure type. And then under that, we've got two structures, right? So there's an instant pay and a monthly pay one. Now, the instant pay, as you'll see, applies for a very niche group of people. For monthly pay, this is what most companies will be using. This is the structure. The one that I just opened is now the structure. So we were at structure type. That has two structures underneath. I've just opened up one of the structures, which is the monthly pay structure. And then you'll see underneath this, you've got all the different components of your salary, right? So you can very briefly take a look here. We'll just go over a couple of examples, a couple of popular ones. Obviously, your basic salary, your allowances will all live here, right? You've got your end of service and end of service provision. Now, the end of service provision and annual leave provision, you'll see right underneath each other here. This is more financial. So if we're not going to cover the financial aspect, we can obviously eliminate these rules. We don't have to basically make them appear on the payslip or get computed with the payslip, right? End of service will detect if an employee gets archived or if the employee is terminated on the system. And then obviously that's the only time where it'll begin calculating. And you'll see the rule is pretty elaborate, giving us all the different information that we know from the labor law and calculating according to that. All right. Now, and this is something I wanted to share with you, Musab. And I think this is what I was referring to when I said it'll be a lot clearer when we get into the salary components. Each of the components, we are able to write in the code, right? And this is from the front end. You don't need to customize this specific screen from the back end. So it's within, if you're capable of writing any Python code, then obviously you can go ahead and modify this yourself, right? You can basically go ahead and query any area of the system from here to get the information that you need. So if we were, like I said, to integrate your attendance or leave records from an external source, from Oracle, we land this on a model on our system here. We're able to then query that model to get the information we need. So we can say, hey, check how many hours of overtime Musab has, how many hours of undertime potentially, how many leaves did he take that, or how much should I deduct from his salary for leaves that he's taken, whether sick or unpaid. Does that kind of make sense? Is it clear?
Hi, I have a question on this.
Mhm.
In terms of, because we have different type of formulas depending on the case. Let's take the case of gratuity. What if a company
The
has
case of
multiple gratuity
gratuity. Okay.
Yeah. Like for example, like a company may have more than one gratuity rule that they are following. You
Yes.
know, we've been to a
Thank you.
company, for example, like they have one gratuity one would be 21 days all throughout. Their gratuity two will be 7, 14, 21, 30. Their gratuity three will be um 21 and 30. Their gratuity four will be like
Hello.
as per your labor law.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of lag with your connection, Roberto. I understand your question though. Let me rephrase and see if I understand. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So you're asking what if you have different types of or different rules for gratuity, different computations or formula, right? Um, Now, obviously, this list of components that you see here, and thank you for that question. This list of components over here is modifiable, right? Like I said. Now, obviously, your rules of gratuity apply to specific people based on specific criteria, right?
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So depending on what the criteria is, we'll just need to have something to indicate it on the system. So let's say I'm just going to provide an example, obviously, because I don't know the specifics. Let's say for people within the age of 50 to 60 are going to have a different rule, right? Now, based on that, what I can do is I can put in the employee's birth date, right, their date of birth, and then from there I can have the system evaluate once I, terminate this employee from under my employment, and I run the last pay run for him to check his age first, and then apply this rule if he qualifies. You get what I mean? So you are able to add additional lines here, right? And you've got two components here. You've got the condition, how it applies, how does the system decide whether it applies or not? And then you've got your computation, which, like we saw, we can be in terms of code. This is the most common way that we do it, where we just code it in so that it automatically calculates things based on all the different factors, all the criteria that exists. Does that kind of make it clear and answer your question?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Another question. If we have different
Please.
types of formulas that we use,
Different types of
depending
what? Sorry.
formulas,
Yeah.
for example, like say when calculating, let's take the case of overtime.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
to get hourly overtime, we use the monthly basis divided by 176. So how can you configure that in your system? But then if it's any other kind of maybe daily rate, depends on the case, it would be a different formula, for example.
Yeah. So,
So,
like I
mm,
said, there's always it's a combination of two things. It's a criteria, and then based on that criteria, I'm choosing the computation. So in this section over here, I think let's take a very quick look at end of service, for instance. So the end of service, you'll see you've got if conditions here. So if this is the case, then go ahead and do this, right? Else, if it's not the case, then go ahead and do this, etc. Right? So similarly, then you've got sections like this as well, where it's an if elif, right? So if this is the case, do this, or if this is the case, then go ahead and do this. And then finally, if it's neither of the above and it's outside of that, you go ahead and do this, right? So similarly, based on your input, if there's going to be specific criteria, for example, this type of overtime. So I've had cases previously, usually within the scope of blue collar employees. So things like construction, etc. They have a lot of overtime, and the way they manage their overtime, they have different, let's say, slicing or different, let's say, brackets for that overtime. So the first 2 hours are paid at a specific rate. Anytime above that is paid at a different rate. If they work on a public holiday, it's a different rate. If they work on the weekend, it's a different rate, right? If they work on a day off, it's a different rate, etc. Right? So we're able to obviously tell the system, hey, check this overtime, check if there's also let's say a leave or a public holiday on the same day. Obviously, all this information lives on the system, so it's able to quickly query itself and find out that information for you, and then run the calculation based on everything that we've defined on the system in terms of the formula, etc. Does that make it clear? Does it kind of make sense?
Yeah. I mean, we're just looking at, in terms of the system, is
Mhm.
it like a configure base or is it like a customization base, and how flexible it can get when we are not following
Oh,
the
pretty
labor law, right?
pretty pretty
Mm,
flexible. Everything that I've
mm,
shown you right now is editable. The titles here of these components, so the sheer number of components you can even modify and remove. Now, usually what we do, or what I prefer to do, is I generally go ahead and create a new structure. I don't use the one that comes in with the localization. We create a new one from scratch that reduces the noise a little bit. Some things might not apply to you, therefore there's no point in having them in, right? So just to keep things more structured, simpler for you to manage, we keep the localization rules available, but then we create a separate one for you that uses this as a baseline, right? Because obviously most of this will be overlapping. Obviously there may be a few things that you do that are extra, that are additional, right? And vice versa. There's a lot of things that you might not involve. A case like yours where we're not handling finance, I don't need to calculate my provisions on the payslip, right? Unless obviously the finance team wants us to provide this information at the end of the pay run, we can obviously keep it in. But I think does it kind of make sense, right? And the calculations, for sure. Any calculation you have, because the information lives on the system. So I've got my employees, I've got their leaves, I've got their attendances, I've got their overtime, undertime, whatever that may be. Then I'm able to, based on different criteria, run different calculations and combinations of that during the payslip. So if I worked 2 hours of overtime in the beginning of the month, where those are going to be paid on a specific rate, and then there was a Eid break during March. So let's say I worked on the 8 days, right? Then I would calculate those separately and under a different formula with a different rate as well.
okay. In
Yeah.
the case of, let's take the case of, we have like complex cases in terms of calculation, in terms
Hmm.
of pro rata. Let's take the case of annual air ticket. So in the annual air ticket, right, we
Hmm.
have like a destination and the type of class depending on the grade. So it could be business class or economy class. And depending
Hmm.
on the age, it could be a child, an infant, or an adult. Um,
Yes.
so how we do our um, air ticket is like you complete the 1 year. After you complete the 1 year, then you will get the full value of the ticket. Then after that,
All the
you will get the
tickets that you're
monthly.
eligible for.
Yes, then you will get the monthly. So it's like if you're eligible for your yourself independence, then you're gonna have it based on the destination, class, and then which age bracket they fall into. Then
Hmm.
after you complete your 1 year, now it becomes like a monthly payment to them. So you annualize
Oh, okay.
value, you divide it into
Hmm.
12, so you really have that. So one of the things
Hmm.
that are very complicated for us is, does the system can automatically calculate if there's a change in the age bracket from infant to child, from
Yes.
child to
Yes.
adult? Let's say,
Yes.
let's take the case like if it's Feb 14, it will calculate on the infant rate, and then Feb 15 and above, then it will start after the birthday, and based on the birthday, it changes into on a different age bracket. Let's say
Yes.
turning into a
Yeah.
child, then it will be a child rate from that point prorated to the end of the month. Mm.
Yes, yes, of course. So this is something that you can do. So the way that we would handle the airfare payout right now would be, first we need to tell the system, check if it's this employee's first year, or if he has already made it past 1 year. If it's his first year, don't pay anything on a monthly basis. We would only on the anniversary month end up paying the full amount. Now, how we're going to calculate the full amount is we would know the nationality of the employee that we've recorded, or we can, because in some cases you've got dual citizenship, etc. So we'll give you another point for you to record where the destination is for the airfare ticket. And then based on that, you can obviously have them predefined on the system just so that you have a way to manage them as well. The rates that you will pay for the different, first of all, classes, and then for the different age groups, right? Then from there, we're going to also be recording the employees' dependents on the system. One thing that's very important for us to do that is obviously to do what you've asked for is obviously to have the dates of birth of all those dependents, right? So this is how you can keep track if an infant turns to a child and if a child moves into the adult stage as well. All right. Now, from there, obviously, the rest is simple. If the employee has made it past 1 year, take his total payout that he's expected to have, which is basically the combination of, hey, he has one ticket for himself, one for the spouse, and then one for the child, for example, and then split that, divide that by 12, and put this amount into the salary, impacting the net salary, obviously, right? So you'll get the component itself, and then it'll obviously reflect in the net salary as well. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. And do you have any pre-made rules set for education entitlements? A lot of organizations, especially in the government, has education entitlement reimbursement as a facility.
Mhm.
So
No, you said, did you
Mhm.
say reimbursement?
No, education entitlement,
Yeah,
but it's on reimbursement basis.
it is on reimbursement basis.
Mm.
Yeah, that's completely fine. So, for that, you can either use the expenses, right? What I just showed you, or what I just spoke about briefly, where an employee would record the expense that they've paid. They'd say this is education fees that they've made a payment for. They'll obviously attach the supporting documents. They'll put in the amount, and then what you process this, you submit it, and obviously the employee submits it. It gets approved, and then it reflects automatically into the payroll if it's to be reimbursed. You can have it reflect automatically in the payroll for that employee. That's completely fine.
Yeah, but
That's
pertaining to, do you guys have any kind of setup already made specifically for education?
no, this is generic, so this applies to everything, right? This could be a business lunch or a business dinner with, with a client, with a high profile guest, generally speaking, whatever that may be. We apply the same thing. We use the same thing as well, for that. So there's nothing that needs to be specific to education. Is there, or is there a certain bit of information that impacts this that you maybe want to talk about further?
Yeah, because in the education, it would be, you need to have the name of the child, and their
Yeah,
entitlements. And then,
yeah.
for example, for our payroll, we don't process anything that is non-employee related entitlement benefit thing. For example, if there's credit card and all those things, that's not done by the payroll team. We only process benefit entitlements, reimbursements, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
education and that. So it's very limited for that. Now, in
Yeah.
terms of the education, why I'm asking about the education, because education has school years, it has different time period and how it's looked at. Now,
Hmm.
in your expense, does he have an
Hmm.
AI or an OCR that pre-filled the information, identify which field it is, if it's a tuition fee or a school transport or it's a uniform? Does it have that?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, it does. So you are able to. I'll very briefly, load it up. Unfortunately, on my device, I don't have any receipts or any bills that I can do. So this is throughout the system, by the way. You've got this on expenses. It's also in the finance modules. So basically, you can start by just uploading directly. All right. And once you upload, so here, this is the expense record. I think visually this will help us a little bit. So obviously you can attach the receipt here, and then it'll go ahead and do the recognition for you. Obviously within what it can recognize, right? So it'll put that in. We'll have a category here that's specifically for school fees. So you've got different categories set up. We can create new ones, right? So I can say I have got a school fees, all right? And we can just say education, right? We go ahead and save that. And then you've got this over here where you put in the amount, you attach, the proof of payment that you've made. Obviously, we need to select this, the employee, to reimburse. The reason being, it obviously is going to reflect on the payroll. So I can do this. I'd say this included the 5% tax, for example. And obviously, I can link it to a specific employee. So let's say this is under Ahmed's name, for instance. And then I'll just add myself in as the manager here, right? So you can attach a receipt. If you don't, then you can go ahead and submit this. Once you submit this, because obviously I'm the user, so it automatically approved it, as you can see. And then from there, what you need to do is just click on report in the next payslip, right? And it just tells you here that expense will be added to the next payslip. All right. And then this will obviously go ahead and show up on the payslip. And I think it'll be a good opportunity for us to look at this together when we do the pair on, and we can check Ahmed's specific payslip. We'll see how that applies over there. Right now, if there's any further level of detail that you might want to record, we can include all of that on the expense record over here. That's completely fine. So if there's things like, hey, under the employee, since it's school fees, we want to know who this was for. Was it for one of your dependents? Was it for both? Are you paying a bulk payment for both? Let's say if you had two kids in school, things of the sort, we can do that. We can provide a table for the employee to say, hey, for this dependent, I paid, 800. For this one, I paid 200, right? And he can attach both receipts in that case. Or if it's a singular one, again, they can go ahead and attach, but break it down on the system. Why? This will help you with your auditing, right? What I'm showing you right now should be sufficient as a bare minimum, right? However, any additional layers of information you might want to add are very easily added onto the system. It's highly customizable, as I think Omar must have already introduced to you guys. But I can confirm we have a lot more custom work going on that we're happy about carrying out. Yeah, because some things are non-negotiables. Yes, yes, Musa. Mhm. Okay. So in some areas, you've got an option where you can add a few properties. We don't generally recommend that because we do have a no-code tool that can add fields in, right? However, this is double-edged, right? You'll find end users, again, the access for that remains very limited. It's only with the highest level of access on the database because we don't want to give this to the general end user, right? We don't want an accountant adding in fields, for instance, right? It's not their domain, it's not their area. So you are able to do that. You can go ahead and do that. However, when we do our implementations ourselves, we obviously don't do this from the front end. We give you packaged modules that alter the back end so that you can obviously take your database and move along wherever you'd like. It's also more stable with upgrades when we upgrade you. It's easier for our upgrade team to sift through your prepackaged module rather than having to go look for each and every additional field you might have added, right, themselves. So the brief answer is yes, you can, but we don't generally recommend it. So we prefer to do it in the back end. After we hand the system over to you, if you'd like to add one or two fields, for instance, that's acceptable. That's okay. Yeah. Wh- wh- So so the way it's coded is based on the fields that you currently see. It doesn't check for school name because there isn't a place for it to enter the school name in, right? Um, Whether this is something that can, sorry, whether this is something that can be worked on down the line, I think is just a matter of, a quick question to our technical team in terms of expanding the capabilities of OCR. I believe the OCR is by a third-party provider, if I'm not mistaken. I'll need to double check on that and get back to you. Uh, but the idea is it wasn't designed for verification. That always remained with the user because there's an approval process here, as you see. Um, it's mainly to make it easier for the user to enter, right? Mhm, mhm. S- s- So that would be if you're asking if this is available out the box, then obviously no, because like I said, those aren't those aren't data points that exist on this view right now. If you're asking about the potential of adding that in down the line, again, like I said, I need to check the feasibility of it with someone from technical. However, for the most part, most of the verification or the validation remains with the user. Now, I know you're not asking for the validation to happen from the system. You're asking for flags just to help with the auditing. I understand that as well. So yeah, so I can obviously take this up with someone from technical to kind of bring this up and see where we can tweak the OCR. Is it something we have access to tweak in terms of the logic that applies, or is it just prepackaged for us to redistribute as part of the software, right? Sure. We'll take note of this and we'll get back to you as soon as we can on the matter.
I think I'd just like to clarify as well. So you guys are using Oracle mainly for all your HR functions, right? So just at the current state, the employees that you have, when they come and submit these expenses, do they also do it on the same portal, or do you not have a portal where the users can come and submit this information?
It has a self-service feature.
Sorry?
It has a self-service feature.
It has a self-service field. So in the self-service portal that you guys have, the expenses technically are being submitted from Oracle directly.
Yeah.
So what we're discussing maybe is just in terms of getting that information and putting it into Odoo once that's submission. So are we saying that you guys will want to keep the submission of the expenses and all that information there, or are we shifting the conversation in terms of maybe we can do the expenses or the submission of the expenses on Odoo?
See, when we are exploring the solution, we
Mhm.
look at the scalability,
Mhm.
right? It's like, okay, we start off with the payroll,
Okay.
and maybe we can expand it further.
Mhm.
You know, when you have multiple systems, it's sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good as well.
Yeah.
So there are pros and cons for this. So we're taking, let's say, a baby step for just changing payroll, but we are looking at the opportunity also later on. If the system does very well, on our experience, then we're going to start moving it into that. Why we are focusing on this is that we have certain challenges regarding education, especially when an employee leaves. So the team is manually calculating recovery when it comes to education benefit. So those things maybe can be captured at the form level and then use that information when driving, because currently right now it's not working. Maybe the team can actually give a scenario of what it is, and then you can validate to us as well on the call if you guys can actually see a solution into it on your technology. Leah, Siad, if you guys can give that sample.
Yeah, I think that'll be great. If you guys can give us an example in terms of what the challenges that you're facing on the system are, just to see in terms of, okay, can we actually rectify them or not? So can you guys give us maybe an example or two?
I think allow me to just chip in here very quickly. I think it's safe to say that it's going to be an upgrade for us to at least just give you the ability to add in those extra data points. So the name of the school, the dependent that this pertains to, for instance, and obviously these are all going to be drop downs from the already existing list of dependents that HR is managing on that employee's profile. To sort of make sure that the employee can't just type in whatever text and then HR has to go and review if this is a dependent underneath. It's already a drop down. If the employee can't find it, they'll raise this as an issue. If they find them, then obviously they are on our list of dependents, which means it's going to be accepted for them to register things under this dependent. Now, obviously, we can pull in all the relevant information again, like I said, across the system into this view over here. So, for example, we do the schooling coverage, the tuition fees up to a certain age, right? The age of 18 potentially, right? If memory serves, I think that's the norm. So we can also pull in the age of the dependent. We can even add those checks in. So if an employee tries to add a dependent that's above the age of 18, then obviously we go ahead and flag this to the employee, give them a blocking warning that doesn't allow them to proceed with the creation, right? Letting them know that obviously this is only for dependents up to the age of 18, etc. Right. Now, obviously, if you guys have samples that you can provide, even if like Kamar suggested, if you'd like to have an email thread specifically for this, where you just share a couple of screenshots of how things happened today, for example, versus the pain points that you have, and then we can provide our suggestions on what we can do to potentially rectify that or address those issues. That's something that we can kind of offer as well.
Should we give the scenarios now, or we can send it across? Like,
If you'd like
Yeah,
to,
it's okay.
if you'd like to give us one scenario just to kind of understand a little bit more, then yeah, of course.
yeah, in the education, when employees are leaving, we have two conditions. Mainly, we have to check. For example, the total entitlement for the year is 50,000 for an employee. When an employee leaving, we have to calculate the entitlement up to the last working day. Okay, then any amount employee has reimbursed beyond that entitlement, it has to be
Mhm.
recovered. Okay,
It'll
so
be,
for example,
yes,
if
it'll
you
be
are leaving,
recovered
then
from
you
the
know,
end of service.
yeah. Plus,
Mhm.
our
Then you also
education
need to check
claim,
the end of service to make
yeah.
sure that
Plus,
it's not the amount extra is not more than the end of service, so you still can recover.
yeah, one more condition is there. Like our reimbursement is in advance basis. Like it's for the year. Any term they can claim in advance. For example, December month claim, they can claim it in January itself. So if the amount claimed for the future period beyond the last working day, that one also has to be recovered if the employees are
Yes, of
leaving.
course.
So
Yes.
we
So
have
this
to,
requires a whole engine to manage, which yes,
yeah,
yes, I understand now the picture slightly. So because you've got a lot of moving parts within the system, where your
yeah,
education reimbursement, you've got advances, you've got over reimbursement that might apply. If, for example, they work half year and their entitlement is 50,000, then they leave at the end of June, then their entitlement for that year becomes 25,000. It's prorated, and then if they have taken the full 50,000, then you want to recover the remaining 25,000, for instance. So all this is something that's obviously doable. Again, like I said, what's important is for us to have the data on the system. The rules, the logic, we can obviously do, right? I think we're at a day and age where there's no logic that's not reproducible with code. So basically, we create an engine for you to manage this schooling. We can take it outside the expenses, right? Keep expenses for what they naturally are, right? More simpler day-to-day, let's say, transactional things. With this, because it's a pure HR benefit, this could live somewhere under payroll. We can have the employees record this in the approvals application, for example. Then obviously this gets approved, let's say, by HR and finance, potentially, right? Then from there, the payout happens, and that's tracked over there, right? So now at the end of the employee's tenure, so you'll see, I'll just very briefly show you something that we currently have as part of the localization. That's a very similar example. If we go back to structure types, and then we go into the monthly pay. So you'll see you've got annual leave remaining balance deduction, this, for instance, right? So what this component is it's basically recovering any extra leaves the employee takes. So an example is, for us, let's say internally at Odoo, we get our leave entitlement at the beginning of the year. So I can take my full entitlement during January. I can take the whole month off, right? Now, this entitlement is supposed to be my entitlement for the whole year. If I leave in February or if I leave in March, then obviously the company will check, okay, he's worked 3 months. This is how much entitlement he should have. This is how much he actually took. So the balance that company needs to recover is this much, right? Then there's the opposite of that as well, which is the allowance, right? So if, again, this doesn't apply maybe to the tuition, right? If they didn't claim anything, they lose it. They don't necessarily claim it at the end of their service. But basically, for leaves, for example, this applies. If I'm entitled for the full year's balance and I don't take any leaves during the year, and I leave during that year in December, right? If my last working day is 31st of December, the full entitlement for the year, I'm going to be receiving in cash, right? So I'll basically be receiving a month's salary um, from the company. Does that kind of make sense to you? So we'll basically, what I'm trying to say is we'll leverage the same logic that we have existing here, and instead of using the time off module for this, we're going to have a new module created for you um, to manage the schooling, let's say, and the benefits aspect of things. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, and of course, I'm sure all the scenarios will. So the nice thing is, we during our analysis, so the way our projects work is we have a phase of analysis in the beginning, where we sit down and we get all the details from you. Again, this meeting is just for us to simply discuss the potential, right? You come in with a few pain points, a few focus areas. So for you, it's payroll, more specifically, some of the benefits, right? Because I'm sure you don't have an issue paying out your basic salaries and allowances, right? I think the pain points are usually with very, very niche, very specific things where, for example, we have an older system that's too robust, that doesn't allow for us to maybe tweak slightly, that causes us to kind of look outside for something else that makes the team's life easier when they're running the payroll. So obviously we sit down during this analysis phase and we understand all the details, because that's usually where the issues are. The devil's in the details, and we sit down and obviously provide you with a solution on, hey, this is how we see it working. And we get this validation from you before we even begin implementing, right? Just to make sure that when you commit to implement, you're committing, on something that you agree on, something that your users have verified. We even show you more tailored proof of concepts on that front as well. Just to, we might do some front end customization to just show you, hey, these are the new fields we've added. The employee will potentially come in, fill in these details, click on this button. This is what's going to happen in the back end, the logic that's going to take care of it. And then from there, you get a bit of a clearer idea on what your final product might look like.
Okay. For example, for our process, we basically both HR and finance activities that we are
Mhm,
doing from the HR side. So
mhm.
once after the payroll is run, can the can the system actually just push all of the costing and posting for after that? So going to Oracle Finance, because currently right now, I mean, like they're doing it manually. But
Yeah.
I think integration to Oracle Finance on those kind of reporting requirements and posting to the JV and costing and all those things, can that be
Mhm.
pushed after the payroll run?
Yeah. So you'll see there's an accounting tab over here for all the components. This is where you can set the debit or credit accounts, and then the final deliverable or the final outcome that Odoo provides is a journal entry, right, with all the different accounts. You might call them the ledgers or the ledger codes, and then the amount in debit and the amount in credit accordingly, obviously. And then that entry can then be sent out to Oracle. Now, obviously, like I said, the integration with Oracle requires that Oracle is able to receive. So if you've got APIs that we can, utilize, we can then also code this in so that Odoo is pushing this information to Oracle as soon as the pay run is confirmed.
Okay. Now, do you have AI capabilities in Odoo?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Berto?
Do you have AI capabilities, AI and automation capabilities in Odoo?
Yeah, so with Odoo 19, which is our flagship version that released, I think, last September, if I'm not mistaken, Omar, they've introduced the AI integration into the system. So you'll see at the top of my nav bar over here, I've got an AI button here. There's a few things that I can query. So I can query a lot of things here. Let's try one. I think because this is a demo database, I hope it works. So let's say how many uh, let's say MLT employees do I have, right? And I'll prompt it from here, and then it'll go ahead and process and provide me with a response. Now, as you see, it tells you kind of what it's doing. So it's searching the database. It knows where to look because I asked about employees. So it'll tell me here I have 2 Emirati employees. I can go ahead and verify this by coming in here and grouping by the nationality just to make sure that it's giving me the right information. Right. So if I come in here, and yes, you'll see AE, I've got Ahmed and Aisha. They're both Emirati employees, as you can see, with the nationality set over here. All right. So this is Ahmed, and this is Aisha. Right. So
Can
you've
you
got
tell us more on the capabilities? For example, let's say, okay, you inquired about the count. How about like, can they apply for leave balance? Can they ask for HR policies? Can they process? Can they
yeah,
request the data from the AI and not going through the form?
yeah. So so this is just a language model that's going to be able to query the database for you. So obviously, I think we've seen it. Anything on the database, you can go ahead and query. That's one. The other thing that you can also do is you can add your own agents as well, right? So what we can do is we can go ahead and add a new agent, right? We can specify what model we want it to use, and then we can even give it a few topics or a few sources, right? So if I come and say HR policies, let's say, I can go ahead and add a few sources where I can upload a few files, or if I've got them in on the system in the knowledge application, I can do that as well. Or if I'd like to add a link for it to access, if I maybe have my HR policies published on the link, I can go ahead and also attach that in here, right? So if I upload a file with all the different policies in, then obviously employees can go ahead and load up this agent, and then they can go ahead and query it for different bits of information, right, with regards to HR policies. They can go ahead and also ask things like, hey, when is the public holiday recorded for, right, for the 8 holidays, for instance, which somebody from HR would have probably input over here in the public holidays section, etc. Right? So you're capable of customizing a few things with regards to AI, right? So I think the one we just used was this one, the Odoo agent, right? Actually, no, I think it's this one, the Ask AI. So this is configured like this, right? Obviously, you give it a system prompt for context, and then there are no sources here because it's querying the database directly. The response style you get to choose as well. So if, for example, you're going to create an agent for a marketing team, you might want something a little bit more creative in terms of the responses, etc. With this response style, it's obviously coded so that it can go ahead and query, get the information presented the same way it did, right? Very analytical, very concise, to the point. Mhm, mhm, mhm. Perfect. Perfect. So, uh, mhm. No, no, please go ahead. Mhm. Yeah. So the agents, as far as I know, as of right now, aren't yet carrying out tasks, right? So they can't apply for the leave themselves. They can't, open views, etc. They can query the database. I think this in itself is a more recent advancement. I think in AI with the agentic workflows and all that. So with time, obviously, so we jumped on the AI ship very, very early on. I think in terms of integrating it natively into the ERP, I think we're um, at a good spot. Now, the other thing you asked about with regards to providing an AI agent separately for the user groups, you won't have to, simply because as I query, the system is trying to read from a specific set of tables, right? So if I ask it, hey, how much did Musab get paid last month? Right? What was Musab's net salary? If I don't have payroll access, admin level payroll access, obviously, then it's going to go and say, hey, look, I tried to read, but then your user doesn't have the access to do that, right? Because it knows, it understands where it's looking and whether this person has access to that model or not before it goes ahead and actually provides the income. So it assumes your access right before it goes ahead and carries out its query.
I think just to add on that as well. So it can actually do some server actions, not as much as, okay, I want to apply a leave on this day, and then it does the full action for you. But it can update fields it can update fields in server actions specifically. And
You're
there
right,
are
yeah.
additional, yeah, there are more things that can be done. So you can even, if you tell it, for example, find the two how many Emirati employees do I have, and then show me a report of that. It'll take you to the reporting page, and it'll give you a report on the table based on the question that you've asked, right? And it'll have the filtered out. So right now it can do general reports. I think on the roadmap, the next step I think should be with the next release, to have much more complex reports being generated from it. Of course, yeah, definitely. The roadmap, yeah, go ahead. The roadmap, I'll double check, because the roadmap is more internal, and there's a lot of things, because it's the roadmap is not always in terms of certain of what will be released or what not be released. So the things that we study and that we kind of set into play. So a lot of things are not kind of released in terms of what actually will happen. Some things are, some things aren't. I'll look at that for you, but I'll send you the ones, the release notes or features that are currently available.
I think it's safe to say we can give you an idea, Musab, about the direction at least that it's headed in, right? We can get in touch with the product team in Belgium and kind of get a bit of an idea, right? Yeah.
So
No.
ChatGPT.
I think you saw from the agent page itself. You're seeing here in the small pill, so to speak, the LLM model that we're using. So right now we're using GPT and Gemini. Obviously, I think because Claude has been coming up, Claude's actually been at the top almost for a while now. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. No, they're all. Mhm.
I don't think they are. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
So what I wanna because I think some of the older GPT, not so obviously not from this list, right? I think everything on this list is an open source. However, we can also take a look at hey, what if we load this and we make this run on your instance, right? This language model, we let it run on your instance, and then it can query. So obviously, we can then kind of take a look at what's open source, what's available online for us to download, and then that becomes private and local on your instance, your database, right?
I think
I mean, I don't see why not. I was just
yeah.
last night running a language model on my machine, uh, so I don't see why not, honestly. But obviously, I'll need to check the feasibility in terms of again, if you're going to be on cloud or not. I think we're gonna have to discuss this in a little bit more detail, Ahmad, right?
Yeah, I think with Gemini, I mean, I checked now. I think Gemini is, so they do have a hosting here, and I do know that we can link what is it called, the AI model to your specific Gemini account. So not in terms of a general Gemini account, but specific to your
Um,
company. If you have one
yes,
specific,
yes,
so if
you're
you
able
do
to.
use Gemini in general, so uh, mm,
Yes. Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you know which ones
I
are?
think Mhm. 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 It's better than nothing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, which is relatively simple. I mean, most end users are able to query databases. So yeah. Mhm. Look, I think again, and this don't take this from me as a commitment, as an answer, because again, I need a technical resource to weigh in on this from our end as well. But the way that this works is depending on the agent, the chatbot that you have loaded in that corner of the screen, as you saw. I think it just sends the prompt to that model. So I don't see where the issue would be for us to customize it in that we can add. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, from a technical standpoint, again, that's the thing I need to. That's why I need to add someone. And like I said, I was personally running a model on my machine, so I kind of know you just are routing the prompt to go to the right model, and then it'll obviously utilize that prompt in its own uh, data set to basically provide the responses or generate them for you. So that part seems very simple. However, if structurally there's an issue, like you said, from an infrastructure point of view, or from a certain bit of standards or regulations, etc. Because at the end of the day, we're going to be saying we provided this. Anything that goes wrong will naturally fall under our responsibility. So I understand their stance as well on it. This is where I need my technical team to weigh in as well to see if we're doing something different that allows it, perhaps, again, we need to get back to you on that. Yeah, just a thread for AI. You can send any further queries as well. You end this meeting today. You remember something tomorrow morning. Just shoot us an email, and we're more than
Nice.
happy to respond. I think
Yeah,
we haven't run a pay run itself, which
yes,
is, I think,
yeah.
the one thing that I think is remaining for me to show in terms of workflow. And then obviously when it comes to reporting, we've got a couple of reports with regards to payroll. Obviously, all the areas of the system that I spoke about basically have reporting baked in, simply because at the end of the day, it's a database. So naturally, this sort of BI kind of approach exists. So you're able to generate pivots and graphs, etc., of different data sets in different ways. We can very briefly take a look at that. Um, I think, and then from there we move on to general Q&A if anyone has anything specific.
I think, Abdurrahman, if before you start as well, since we brought up an example for the education, since this is something you guys are facing an issue with, are there anything you guys want to highlight in terms of challenges or things you'd like to kind of rectify and a new solution when we're talking about payroll specifically?
We're currently building um, these kind of complex scenarios that we're gonna share.
Mhm.
Case and education is covered into this, maybe air passage and maybe two or three more, and then
Mhm.
that we will
Mm.
share.
Okay.
So you guys can have a look at it and come back to us.
I think our audience here in this call is perfect because we've got a combination of IT and business, so IT and HR. So I think if we receive all these queries by email and then we can respond to both teams, I think should be in that thread. Just so we can, because when we explain it over email, it might not, to the business team, it might not make too much sense because what we're talking about is how we're going to structure the database to enable the business flow that the business team has shared. And then obviously, if anything more specific is required, or if you need to see an actual demonstration of it, depending on obviously feasibility of how much we can customize from the front end, we can obviously go ahead and suggest that as well in our responses.
Mm. Sounds good.
Yeah, great. All right. So just off the top of my head, just to keep track of things, we're going to have a thread for complex scenarios with payroll. Generally speaking, this includes the schooling aspect and potentially other aspects as well. Then we're going to have a thread for AI and product roadmap in that domain down the line as well, just for us to be able to provide responses on a few of the things we brought up during the meeting today. All right. So very briefly, I'm going to show you what your activity is expected to look like when it comes to generating your payroll at the end of the month. So on the payroll module, like I said, you've got your dashboard over here. You've got a few different menus over here that you have access to. I think from here, that's most of what I want to show. Rule parameters and a bunch of the other menus over here are slightly more technical. So parameters here are basically if you want to have global variables, right? So if my overtime rate is 1.25, right, it's 25% extra per hour, then I can define this as a parameter and reuse it in the rule. This just makes my rules cleaner so that I can just change the parameter once and it affects globally from that date moving forward. But for the most part, we don't even need to use the parameter. We can go ahead and just do it directly on the rule itself. Now, when it comes to your pay run, it's very, very brief, very simple. You're going to say, I want to create a new pay run for all the structures involved under this schedule, the monthly schedule, right? And then I have March 1st to 31st as my period, and I go ahead and I click continue. It'll pull up a list of all the employees that have, like I said, overlapping contracts that are running with this period. And then I go ahead and select all of them, click on select, and you'll see within a couple of minutes, my payroll is completely calculated for me, right? So, for example, I'll check with Ahmed Mansour. You remember the expense, the reimbursement we had. There's 1,000 over here. Now, this will also appear here under expense reimbursements and will be added to the salary as well. These are all the components depending on what we had on his profile. These are the provisionary amounts as well, which will now be useful if you'd like to push the accounting entries um, into Oracle, right? So these will be important to apply. You've got his social insurance company and employee contributions, right? Again, because he's Emirati, so this applies to them. There's also I think, the GCC pension funds, if I'm not mistaken. Musab, you could correct me maybe on that. Um, then you've got his gross or taxable salary, the reimbursement, and then finally the net salary and the net costs. These are two different calculations. The net salary is how much he's actually going to get paid, how much he's actually expecting to receive after all the deductions and additions. And then you've got the net cost, which is more calculating how much he's going to cost the company in terms of the company contributions that are going to be made as well. Right? Does this all make sense? Again, I'm trying to make sure we conclude before 12:30, just in case you guys have anything else that needs to be
Quick question.
addressed.
Why do you need
Mhm.
to select at the time when you do the payroll run?
Because there may be instances where you would exclude a certain employee for certain reasons. So they've just added this layer of flexibility in. Now, I selected in a couple of clicks. So I had, again, 30 employees. We can do a very quick pay run one more time, right? So just clicking at the top here selects all employees for me, right? Just if there's no one that I'm going to exclude, if there's a standing instruction to exclude someone specifically from payroll because they've taken leave, they haven't returned, right? So they've been absconding, for instance, right? Then in that sense, you might want to exclude them from the payroll for that month. right?
Can it be possible to just have it by default as all tick and then untick if you want to exclude rather than the other way around?
I actually would need to check with someone from Technica if we can have this automatically be the case. I think yes. I don't see why there would be an issue, but I think just the fact that it's a click that we're saving, I think is not is not going to be a major issue, right? We can obviously get back to you on this as well. Again, these are tinier, let's say small quality of life or cosmetic more or less improvements that we can get into. The idea here, or what we're trying to focus on, is obviously to make sure that your workflows are covered, that there's nothing missing, there's nothing that's blocking your team from carrying out what they need. Yeah.
Yeah, true. But I mean, like, if something to reduce an effort is always better. All those little efforts
Yeah.
that you need to put, right? It accumulates.
Yeah. I
All
mean,
those little
again,
adding tick here, adding tick there, it adds to the time.
for
If
sure,
most
for
of the
sure.
time you're not
I get you.
if most of the time you're not really excluding, and by default everyone is included, it's better
This
to approach it that way around.
this is the challenge with creating a product generally. No one, it's never going to be the case where everyone's pleased, because just until last version, they used to populate all the employees for you by default, and you would manually remove the same thing you were asking for, the exact same thing. I can maybe even,
Mhm,
if we have the time, show you an older version on version 18, the way that this
mhm,
is done on the demo database as well, right? So it's unfortunate. Sometimes they make changes that our users will complain about, because they were so used to something that they've grown accustomed to, and then all of a sudden with an upgrade everything feels fresh and new. Some things might feel alien as well, right? So I think we can bring back that old behavior. We can even bypass this screen altogether. So whenever you click on continue, we can bypass this and ask it to just, hey, select every record that showed up and just go ahead and create directly. That's something we can do. However, loading this view and selecting everything is just that tiny detail that I'm not sure we can do or not. Right. And then
Okay.
obviously from here, we can give you a button on the side here to exclude. If you want to exclude someone, you go ahead and you search for them. So if I'm going to exclude Ahmed, for example, this time, so I'll find the Ahmed that I want to exclude and then just have a button here to exclude. That's another solution. Again, like I said, this is why I'm saying this is more cosmetic quality of life change that we can obviously look into down the line. That's completely fine.
Okay.
All right. So you've got this, obviously what happened with Ahmed is the case with everyone else. So you've got Aisha with all her components in, etc. And then from here, once you're in the pay run, you can go ahead and click on validate. All right. Then you've got your payment report. So the payment report is where you do your WPS CIF file, right? If you'd like, you can even extract this in an Excel format. So if I just put in my employer reference here as DMCC, I can go ahead and do that. If I say my payment date is going to be 25th, I can also do that. I think it'll be better if I export this in an Excel file to just go ahead and download. And if you give me a moment, I'll share that with you. So I'll just make it so that I'm sharing the entire screen. All right. And this is basically what you can expect. So it'll add in all the different payments that you're going to be making, right? In this form. It'll add the routing code for that employee's bank, their bank IBAN, right? Then add in the period for which this is paid for, the number of days. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the basic amount, or actually, no, this is the net amount that's going to be paid, obviously, right? Okay, and then it gives you obviously the summary at the bottom where it comes to your own account and how you're going to pay that out. Does that make sense? Is it clear?
Siad, Leah, you got any questions on this part?
If you make any salary changes backdated, those retros will be calculated right automatically. We don't have to run any retro run or process separately, right? It will be along with the.
What do you mean backdated?
I mean, we are running the salary in so payroll in March. but we have made some
Mhm.
changes in the salary, basic salary or full salary, backdated from February or January. So there is a difference amount, right, as a retro. So that amount will be
Okay,
calculated, right?
so yes, there's an engine for this. Thank you for bringing this up. There's an engine for this for salary adjustments. So because these are, it's very rare that this happens, from what I understand. So obviously, for example, let's say Ahmed's salary changed where, as of January, and now he is owed. So in March, it'll automatically be calculated on the new salary, but January and February are missing. So let's say we added him to be 5,000 extra, remember, when we changed his salary. So he
Mm.
had 5,000 extra for March. It was automatically calculated. When it comes to January and February, however, we basically need to go ahead and add that extra 10,000. So we can go ahead and add this,
So we
right?
have to add
So
this
it's
amount
going to be a one-time addition.
as an adjustment
Yes.
manually.
Now,
Mm.
obviously, we can make it so that. So the reason I'm showing you this is because the engine to manage it exists. Now, whether it's manual or automated is a different conversation. So if I tell you, for example, Ziad, I'm going to ask you to in a specific menu, I'll ask you to fill in the salary adjustment and flag whether or not this is backdated as of which date. Then the system can check, hey, did we pay this number or did we pay a different number? If it's a different number, then it will go ahead and create this record for you automatically. Why is this
Oh,
record important? Because this will make it reflect automatically in the payslip. You get what I mean? This is the end.
yeah.
This is the final outcome that we're looking for. But yeah, thank you for that question because it allows us to address
So,
this as well. Yeah, and
How
then
about
from here,
how about mass changes? For example,
how
like
about
how
what?
we
Sorry.
track mass changes.
Mhm.
We process our net increase in March, but its effective date is January. So that is like a lot of employees. Like
Oh, okay,
almost all of the
I'm
employee
sorry,
salaries.
Roberto. I didn't hear you very clearly. Could you repeat?
Um, so how about mass changes?
Mass
Merit
changes.
increase,
So for
yes,
multiple
like
people.
yes. So
Mhm.
merit increase is processed in March, but effectiveness of the change is backdated to January, for example.
Okay. Yeah. So you're able to also do that. Now, obviously, if I were to create a new adjustment for a group, it'll all be on a specific amount. So we'll obviously need to tweak this slightly for your salary adjustments to basically reflect in different records of salary adjustment per employee. So the way that we would do this, so this is part of your yearly review, I'd assume, right? So based on
yes,
performance,
Yes, yes,
etc.
yes, yes,
Right?
yes, correct. Yes.
So one thing that's very convenient once again is if we were to use the model for appraisals or the app for appraisals, then we obviously need to fill in the performance reviews for each of the employees. Based on the rating they get, for example, they're going to receive a certain number. But then you take some time to audit and to close everything by March, and you want it to reflect, right? So now we have a workflow. We have a place for the system to look and say, okay, this employee's salary was this much. From the appraisal record, we're going to increase it to this much, and then it's going to be able to calculate the difference and obviously, multiplied by the number of months that it's late. So, for example, it can check if March payroll is processed, then it'll move it to April. If it's not processed, it'll keep it in March, effective March, and then calculate an additional adjustment like we saw with the record I created for the 2 months. Per employee, it'll create it separately depending on, because some employees might have no increment, right? Some employees might have and obviously, other employees will have different increments to each other. Not everyone's going to share the same number, right?
And I have a question here also. Will the pension contribution be calculated for the GCC nationals when these changes are done, or we have to run another flow?
So you want those to also retroactively be impacted,
Yeah.
right? For Jan and Feb. Yes, for sure. Obviously, like I said, this is what the outcome is from when we do our analysis, because it's small details like this that will obviously impact. So we'll obviously add that in as well. So if this rule exists, where if someone has an increment that's retrospectively paid for the previous months, some other things might also need to be added in. Their leave provisions might need to be updated as well, things of the sort, right? Because these will all make small differences in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, so we
Nope,
don't
that-
have to
yeah, that's just-
import any files from our end, right? The system will calculate them automatically.
we obviously need to feed in the change in salary somehow. So if you have this in a format that you'd like to import, we can, you can provide us with a sample, and we obviously tell the system, hey, when you receive this format, this is what you need to do with it. Or if each employee's manager is going to enter their performance reviews, for example, and how much of an increment they're expected to get, etc. But some input needs to happen, obviously, to the system for it to know how much it's going to add. And then from there, yeah, you don't need to do much. We'll basically code in the rest of the logic to take care of everything downstream.
Oh, okay, thank you.
No worries, no worries.
But they have like a mass upload facility for these changes.
Oh yes, everywhere, everywhere.
Mhm.
Yeah. So when it comes to the changes specifically, we can monitor the change in a record on its own, right? The reason being is I want to be able to refer back to that record, to that instance of change, so that I can tell it, hey, I've made it's been impacted in the payroll on its own, and I've also made the retrospective payments, right? So that again, for auditing purpose, you can always go ahead and review and check what has happened. Now, again, this what I'm suggesting right now is off the top of my head. The more we sit down with you guys and we understand a little bit deeper, the more things might change, right? So we might suggest a different approach or a different solution. Obviously, making it the easiest, journey for your users, for the end users, preparing all this stuff, and at the same time ensuring, that the workflow is fully covered end to end.
Let's say we have an Excel sheet that all of the new salaries are going to get affected. Like you have X number of employees with the new salaries backdated to January 1. Do you have like a facility in there which is, okay, we mass upload it, press the button, upload, takes that into the consideration, and then do the calculation based on that information?
Yeah, so I'll just show you a quick sample. Obviously, what I'm showing you right now will not be exactly what you're looking for, because again, like I said, there's a lot more logic that goes into this, the whole backdated stuff as well. But I've just downloaded an export from the system with an identifier that I can go ahead and use to import back in. So for example, Ahmed is currently at 50. I change him to 55, right? Let's say that's the only change I make. I come back to my system. It's very simple. I go ahead and I click on import, right? Click on upload, and then I put in the file here. And it understands that this is the external ID. So this means I need to update records. I'm not going to create new ones. I click on test. Everything seems valid. I go ahead and I click on import, right? And then obviously I only changed one record, but you feel free obviously to change as many as you'd like. And you see the change is automatically reflected here on the profile. The wage is no longer 50, it's 55. Right? Similarly, you can do that obviously for everyone else. So you would export the data from the system and then maybe look up against the sheet that you've already prepared, or you can export and do the work on the same sheet and then import it back to the system, and you'll see all that. Now, we will need to obviously add in a few more details with regards to, hey, this is supposed to be effective this date, right? Because not everything is going to be retrospective. Let's say someone has an adjustment during during a later time in the year, right? And it's not going to necessarily be as of January. It's going to be as of that same date, where no retrospective payment needs to be made.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe with this, I think we can just take a quick look at reporting when it comes to payroll. So you can obviously take a look at payslip lines. This is, for me, my favorite kind of report, because this shows you by month, by component, what are the different amounts that we've paid. You can even get a better view on this if you'd like. So you can add a different grouping here. So if you want to say, I want by employee, and then over here, I'd like to see it by rule or component, then I can go ahead and see, for example, Ahmed's basic was this much, Ahmed's housing was this much, Ahmed's transportation was this much, etc. Right? And then obviously the additional thing that I want, so if I only want to see Ahmed Al-Mansouri, then I can go ahead and search, and this filters this out directly. If I want to search, for example, only net salaries, right? So I can go ahead and I can do this. So obviously I searched for net. I want to search for net salary. And we can remove this. All right. And then I'd basically be able to see this for Ahmed or for all employees. So these are all the net salaries directly. So you're very capable of, moving this report around, morphing it into whatever layout you'd like I said. And this is what I was referring to when I say pivots and graphs, etc., from the data that's already on the system. That's where the convenience really is.
Okay.
Right? Is there
Is
anything
there any
specific you guys would like to?
report that we can just compare current month gross versus last month, something like that, as part of reconciliation?
Yes. So obviously, you see, this is already grouped by month, right? So if I had data for February, this would also show up. I think we could maybe potentially very quickly generate a payroll for February. So if I just go ahead and do this and I specify that I want this from 1st of Feb, it'll automatically understand I'm trying to do it for the whole month. Then I go ahead and I select. All right, so these are all the pay stubs that I have. If I just click here to update, you'll see I'm able to get a comparison between both. So for example, Ahmed in February doesn't have that expense reimbursement. So he's 62 versus 63, etc. If I'd like, I can download this to Excel, the same format, the same way that it is. Take a quick look at how that looks like. All right, so it'll show up kind of like this, where you can obviously then run your checks on Excel. So I can try to say, hey, if these two numbers are equal, true or false, right? And then accordingly, everyone is matching exactly the same except for Ahmed because he had an adjustment. He had a reimbursement that was added on top, right? Similarly, you can obviously build whatever report you'd like. So if you want to compare specific component rather other than the net, you can obviously go ahead and do that as well.
Okay, thank you.
With
No
with
worries.
other reports, you can also get rather than doing it on Excel. So you can do it on Excel, or you can insert it in a spreadsheet inside Odoo, and then the spreadsheet will work just like Excel as well. So you can insert all of the functions that you want. So ideally, if this is something, for example, a report that you want to see, you can also turn it into a graph, right? And the idea is that it's going to be live data. So you will not need to repeat this report every single month or whenever you want this report. It's based on live data. So you just do it one time and then that report is always there.
Right. So as Omar was saying, you insert this into spreadsheets, then it also becomes available in your dashboards application. So you'll see here I have payroll by month. I'm able to see it like that. Now, obviously, clicking in will take us to the records that we are concerned about. So this is going to be one record for Feb, one record for March. We can obviously, from the spreadsheet itself, create, like Omar said as well, the different graphs and visual representations. The nice thing about dashboards is that this first page is a dashboard. The first sheet usually is a dashboard, and you can have this as a helper, let's say, sheet for you. So I can go ahead and say, I'd like to insert a chart, for example, that is going to be from, from this range to this range. Let's do this, all right? And then I can go ahead and click on confirm. And again, this might not be the best type of graph to show, but basically it'll go ahead and create the graph for you, all right? And then if I move back into the dashboard over here, you'll see I'm able to see the graph without having to look at the table where everything is being calculated for me, for instance. Able to expand this and kind of get a better look. And it'll tell me, what exactly it is that I'm looking at, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, this is obviously in addition to the default ones that you have. So with payroll, you've got a few default ones that are available for you as well. Now, obviously, because we haven't paid any of the pay slips, they don't show up here. As soon as we mark them as paid, it's going to basically appear over here for us to be able to take a look. I hope. Is there anything else? I hope I've answered your question. Is there anything else you'd like to get into? You'd like to discuss further? No, so we handle our implementations ourselves. So like Omar said, I currently lead a team of project managers and business analysts. Their roles are slightly different. One will manage the timelines and budgets and kind of handle the communication with you on a higher level. And then you've got the business analyst that's going to actually run the implementation, do the follow-ups internally with our developers for any custom work that needs to be done, and will be training your teams, etc. So we have a fully, self-sufficient system going on internally where we handle your implementations end to end from start to finish.
I mean, relatively in terms of subscription, we are more affordable. So the user cost is $306 per user per year. And then the implementation, it depends. It varies on the scope. It varies on what customizations we need to do, what integrations. And then from that, it's a one-time payment. It depends on what it is. So also keep in mind is that just again for future references. So in a case where a client wants a full-scale solution with, let's say, full HR, and you want ESS, so self-service users, they have a different price as well if they're only HR related for self-service.
Maybe,
Of course.
yeah, maybe you can share with us like your clients list, especially Dubai government clients that actually uses your system. That would be a good reference for us. For our
Definitely,
review.
we have a lot of people, clients in different scopes. For HR, one thing that I can share with you, we do have Sharjah government that uses Odoo. So that's one reference I can give you off the bat. Anything that I can, nothing that I can share with, there's nothing that I can share with you. Again, usually with more enterprise governmental accounts, there's a lot of NDAs. So as governmental UAE, nothing I can share. We are working on a couple of different things. Some things done, some things not done yet. So please. Look, in UAE, the only one that I can actually give you as of now is Sharjah government. If you want in other GCC countries, we also have a lot of different governmental entities that use it. Definitely. Okay, of course. Any other questions?